That again.
Hello all, this is Fred.
And I'm Stephanie.
We're from the Roaming Souls. We just wanted to film a little episode giving you a background, our stories, so to speak. We took a 4-month trip to Alaska, and we're going to be showing you some videos, and we just want to let you know where we came from.
Our background. Well, the two lovely people between us are Rob and Jeannie, and we know them from Genesis, which is a support group for separated or divorced couples or people, and helping them through that journey. And Genesis truly was a good foundation for us.
Yeah. So who are these people? Did you say Rob and Jeannie?
Yeah. She said Robin Jean.
Keep going.
So with Rob and Jeannie, we would meet once a week and also attend church together if that was an option or available for people. And so my story, I really didn't want to go first.
Well, we can introduce what Genesis is about, talk about that a little bit, tell us who we are.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great.
And then
So,
you can also tell your story.
Well, Genesis, as Stephanie mentioned to you, is a support ministry for people going through separation and divorce. And Jeannie and I have been leading that class for about 22 years. It's a little bit funny story how we got into it, but we had only been married for a short period of time. And the leader, the pastor of the church came to us, the associate, he was actually an associate pastor, came to us and asked us if we could fill in for a few weeks while the leader was stepping away to take care of some family business, and that was 22 years ago, and the leader never showed back up.
We're still here.
So we're still here doing this thing here. We keep waiting for him to come back. But Genesis Ministry has a kind of a long history, and Jeannie was one of the original members of the Genesis class that dealt with separation and divorce. I'm going to let her tell her story a little bit because she's got an interesting story, and then I'll tell you mine, and then we'll go into Stephanie and Fred.
Yeah. Well, I when I was divorced, I was not very happy with God, and I was very angry. And so I moved back to Atlanta, which is where my kids were born. I was in Chicago at the time. And I went to a church because I met some people that came from Chicago with me. And they told me there was a church over there where I lived in Marietta. And I went to the church. And I knew that the kids needed to be in church. I grew up in church. I was Miss Goody Two-Shoes growing up and had all the church things. So I knew my kids needed to be there. So I dropped them off there. But I was still kind of angry. And so one time I stayed in the church service with my kids. They passed this thing around about divorce. Well, I wasn't going to go to it, so it didn't matter. 3 weeks later, I get a phone call at my office, and I was working at Delta Airlines, and I got a call and said, "Oh, is this Jeannie? Is this Jeannie?" And I said, "Yes, it is. What can I do for you?" And somebody paid for me to go a scholarship to go to that seminar. Needless to say, I wasn't thrilled. But because my kids were in the youth group, I thought, oh, sure, I'll do it. So that's how I got to go to this seminar, which the seminar has started, and we had it every 6 months. And when I got there, I thought, what in the world am I doing? It wasn't just a one-day seminar. It was a Thursday night, Friday night, all day Saturday. Y'all can imagine how much excited I was. But anyway, it changed my life that night, and I was sad on Saturday when it was over. And so that was in 1986. And
Wow.
that's when at the big church was in called Perimeter Church, that's where they had this Genesis class. So I used to go over there on a Sunday night. My kids would be taken care of, and I would drive over to another county where the Perimeter Church was, and I would get involved. And it's really sad because there was like 125 people there, because there was nothing for divorce anywhere at that time. And I got very involved. So I've been involved with it for that many years, and it really did change my life. And that's really how I met this guy. but many years later.
Well, I've always said that you can't spell Genesis without Jeannie. She's been an integral part of the ministry from the beginning as a participant, and then a part of the leadership team, and did some training with the Fresh Start seminar that she mentioned. And I got involved with Genesis through the invitation of a friend of mine who actually was somebody that I knew my brother very well. And I came to Genesis and ran into to Jeannie right away, and we started talking about things, and got involved with the ministry and got involved with Fresh Start. And like I said, in 2003, we had been married for less than a year, less than 2 years actually, as that plane goes by.
Little interference.
Yeah, it happens that way.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All good.
So I got involved with leading the ministry. There was the pastor had asked me to, the pastor of the church, not the main pastor, but the associate pastor had asked me to fill in for a little while the leader had stepped away, and as it turned out, the leader never came back. So
here we are.
we just we were left holding the bag. But that was 22 years ago when we started this ministry, and been involved with it ever since. One of the things that's unique about Jeannie and I is that we've both been there. We have different stories to tell, different perspectives to come across, and it just it lends itself to being able to help people deal with their issues. And we talk about the stages of grief, and we deal with the loss of a marriage as if it was the death of a marriage. And we introduced this diagram called the slippery slope. It was developed from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's work on death and dying, but it shows a curve, and it has particular emotions on there like anger and fear and bargaining. It has the pit, which is where you find depression and sadness and loneliness. And eventually you reach yourself getting into acceptance, moving into contentment, and then finally that F word, forgiveness, which is usually
way out there,
a little further down the pike, but it's on the graph as well.
I think about that with my first interaction with both of you in Genesis. When you introduced the slippery slope, I thought there's no way I'm going to get to that F word. There's no way I want to get to forgiveness. And I just didn't, just knowing where I was and learning where I was in that slippery slope, I just thought that was impossible. And so you've been an inspiration and a foundation and a rock for so many people. And we thought that would be just fantastic for you to share. And I know, for one, I'm thankful. I know Friday and I did not attend Genesis at the same time. But when I attended, I think I was in such denial. You know, I just couldn't believe that after so many years that my marriage was failing and we were going through what we were going. I was angry and in denial, and I thought about the children, and meeting up with you weekly, it was my saving grace. Yep. Just truly.
Well, going back to the seminar, when I went, one of the things I didn't mention is that when I heard that slippery slope that night, it was the very first night of a Thursday night, and when they were drawing and talking about it, I thought, this really sounds familiar. I mean, I really couldn't put my hand on it.
Right.
And I thought, well, gee, this kind of gives me, maybe that's what, and then all of a sudden the speaker said, now some of you are really confused, but then some of you are more confused because you probably went through this in your marriage. And the light bulb went off, and that's what kept me there those 3 days. And at the end of it, I knew I'd be involved with it because that was my life, being married.
Right.
And it was right. Exactly what he said. That was the light that came on.
Right. And I feel the same way. I can reflect in my marriage how it just rode that slippery slope.
Yep.
You know, we had our highs, we had our lows, and I knew where we were at. Did you find that as well?
I guess I'm thinking here I'm the only one in this group that can say marriage is plural.
Married to pure world.
I had 2 marriages. My first marriage started when I was 18, fresh out of high school. Got immediately married and had a young boy, baby. And that marriage lasted 25 years. And even thinking back, yes, I was going through the slippery slope through that marriage for a lot of years. And then went through a Catholic divorce recovery group, which ends up being part of the story is how I met these two. And met my second wife there, and we were married 27 years. This is awkward for me because this is the first time sharing this story publicly. You know, in Genesis, everything that's said in Genesis stays in Genesis.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, so the second marriage lasted 27 years. And that brings me to the point where I met Rob and Jeannie, the facilitator for the first divorce group I was in. Knew I was going through a second divorce and said I ought to give Rob a call. So I did. And at that point I was still married, but there again going through the slippery slope. I was on the road for a year traveling solo, and at that point it was at Lake Lanier and invited Rob and Jeannie out for a picnic. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Truly a blessing.
Well, it was a big blessing for me too, because I mean I'm not just the president of Genesis. I'm also the client,
Right.
like the hair club for men.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I've been there. You know, in my own world. So I have my own story to tell, and Jeannie does too. And so I tell people that, you know, I'm the leader of Genesis, so to speak. I'm the one who does the teaching and the sessions. Jeannie's the lover. She's the one that everybody wants to hug and talk to and all that. So we make a good team
Right.
along those lines too.
Right.
Well, the reason how Rob and I really got involved with each other because the trainer of when we meeting these groups, we have facilitators. You know, people who know they're not teachers. They're just making sure that the conversations go in a good manner, that people can talk and nobody says the wrong thing. But they're not teachers. We don't change anything. We don't judge anybody in these small groups that we met in. And so after the first session of mine, I went to the next 6 months when they had that. I took the training. Well, there was a guy named Jeff that was really good friends with me. And so we kind of like, when we had the training just before the seminar, Jeff kind of had the men over here and I had the women over here just so we could talk, gender, because that's what, you don't know where they're coming from, all of them. And so one day Jeff called me and he said, hey, he was already remarried many years later, and he said, I have a good friend, my best friend's little brother, Robbie. And
I was bigger than Jeff when I was 14 years old.
I know.
He's older than me, and I mean, come on, I was little Robbie. Listen to him.
That's what he was called. Anyway, so Jeff said, I'm bringing him to church on Sunday, and I'll bring him for Genesis. I just wanted to let you know, because could you just make sure that he's, gets comfortable and whatever. And so at that time, I was the greeter of the door when they walk in the door. So, okay, so when Rob and I met, that's how it started, because I always kind of sat with him, because we all sat together in church. When we went to church, we'd all sit together at the same place. And so that was how we first met. And then he wasn't there for, what, 2 months?
No, 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks. And then he came back. And this time I found out he brought, after we all go out to lunch, of course, after church, he has a 4-year-old little girl that he brought. That was the kicker right there.
Game changer.
Yeah, my 4-year-old daughter adopted you right away. That was, as far as she was concerned, that was the end of the road.
That's
She
right.
didn't need any more. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was 6 years before we got married, though, before we really...
Yeah, we knew each other for
Yeah,
6 years
yeah,
before we got married. And when I first met Jeannie, she was so bubbly and so upbeat, and I was like, that's annoying. She was annoying to me because she was happy and all happy-go-lucky, and I was
Right.
like, I was not happy.
Right.
I was struggling really bad. But You know, I remember when you came to Genesis, you were kind of a deer in the headlights. You
I
weren't real
was.
sure what was going on, and you had a lot of questions to ask, and
Right.
that's one of the beauties about this ministry and about this what we call the slippery slope, which is the stages of grief, is it gives us a vocabulary
Yeah.
to be able to connect with other people going through the same thing, and we also realize that we're not alone. And so we tell our stories, and it's interesting how our stories will change over time as we process through. But the slippery part of the slippery slope, the stages of grief, is that you can feel like you're in acceptance and things are going well, and you hear a song on the radio, and bam, you're right back into the pit.
Right.
So there's a lot of movement. It's very dynamic. It's a very dynamic process, which is difficult for people to handle
Sure.
over the particularly by themselves in their own world.
Right.
So
Well, I also thought was very interesting, one of the comments you made. At one point you said, this date of your true separation or your divorce, it won't always be in your head. It won't be like you're living it all the time. You at some point will forget. You will, you let go of that pain, and now I'm like, oh wait, what year did I get divorced?
and where's my divorce settlement? I can't find it either.
Right. I'm like, and I never thought that was possible.
Right.
I was-
I didn't either.
Yeah, no, I thought that denial of like this, I'm just going to live like this forever, and thank God
Yeah.
that that's not the case.
So step forward a couple of years, since Stephanie was already through Genesis when I got there. And I think it was toward the ends of Genesis for me. They had a bike outing to Callaway Gardens. So we carpooled, and I ended up with 3 single women, divorced women in my truck.
Which was dangerous. Dangerous.
So appropriate.
And it was a long drive, and so going and coming, we all had time to share our stories, as it said, and never thought anything about it
Neither did I.
until, we were both friends with Rob and Jeannie, so we would cross paths at their house or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our patio chats on the back porch.
That's right. That's right. And then I get this little card in the mail, which I still have to this day from Fred. Just inviting me out for lunch, a little picnic, and it's signed your friend Fred. So, and we do this 180, and
It worked. Huh?
it did. It did. It certainly did. It's been an adventure.
Yeah.
But we even had another gathering, like at Avocados, and Fred says I hardly talked to him, which I don't recall that.
I recall that. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I just don't stop talking, so I don't know
Yeah.
how that happened. Maybe it was just
You were hiding that part.
and hiding it. And look where it ends.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
one of the things I can tell you about Genesis that is so exciting is the fact that all these years that I've been involved, and then Rob came along, it's just, my mind is always thinking about just how many people have been through that class. And there's only a little small difference. There's a difference between going to a divorce, I won't say divorce care, but that's the only one that was out there at the time. But the problem is, you have 8 weeks or 13 weeks, and it's a video and whatever. Well, we are Life on Life, and that's what Genesis has always been when it first started.
Right.
It was Life on Life. And so we get calls anytime that somebody calls, we're there. And it's like 365 days a year. And you don't have it all the time, but you're always available because we know what it's done for us and for them and for all these people. And it's just been such a blessing to be able to have gone there. I would have certainly never thought of that on that day that lady called.
That it would lead you to.
That would lead to this,
Right.
but it has really led, and it's led my children. I had 2 children. Rob had his daughter, and I had 7 and 9 when we got divorced, and they were both sad, and we left Chicago, came to Atlanta, which is where they were born. But it was really a hard time. My kids had problems. I had situations that I think through the divorce and through the Genesis group that we were all there for each other. So that's just another thing.
I agree.
Well, you know, Genesis is made up of 3 elements, and there's a teaching element which is important, but that's not the main element of Genesis. There's a prayer element which is critical,
Yeah, we do.
and then there's a social element, like they mentioned this bike trip that we went on, that gives people an opportunity just to connect, and connection is so big. And I've asked people over the years to tell me what they found invaluable with Genesis, and they've all said it's just universal, that it's the social activities that make the difference more than anything else. And we're still meeting today in our home. We've got a group of about 8 people now. It's been pared down over time, but we're still finding the same dynamics to be true. It's connection that makes the difference, and sometimes it ends up in marriage.
Yeah, that's not the goal.
No.
It's
No,
never
not
the
at
plan.
all.
In fact, I knew starting Genesis, there was no way, and you know what, that I was getting married again.
That's always a dangerous sign.
I was like, not happening, and so it took some time, but
Yeah.
found
And that's
the
the
right.
part of Genesis we haven't touched on yet, is you also prepare people for new relationships.
Right,
Yes.
that is
The-
true.
The relationship triangle you might want to speak about.
That was hard to do without a diagram.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to do that, and well, we could do that. Go ahead and explain it. We might have to show the diagram later, if you can.
Yeah. Just
Well, what it talks about is it's a little diagram that I actually kind of wrote on the back of a napkin at the Waffle House as I was just processing my information, and it starts off with the bottom of the triangle. We call it the pyramid, but the bottom of the triangle is where you find common values, and that's the foundation of a strong relationship, is having common values. The next rung up was what we call compatible attributes, being able to complement one another. It may not be that we have introvert or extrovert in common, but you may find out that the introvert and the extrovert work together very, very well. So there's compatible attributes, such things as work ethic and temperament and sense of humor and all those kind of things that are just kind of hardwired into who we are.
Right.
We are.
Are the next rung. The third level of the pyramid is communication, being able to communicate both how you care about one another and also be able to communicate during conflict. Because I don't care who you are, if you get into a relationship with somebody, there's going to be conflict, and we need to know how to deal with that, and how we, as individuals, tend to deal with conflict ourselves. The next rung up is common interest, and so the common interest is where we find ourselves spending time together. It's the friendly part of who we are. It's spending time with people in a way that works for us, and common interest is kind of where we start with dating. We just get to know one another and find out what they're about, which is important. And then the final rung, the top of the pyramid, is chemistry.
Right.
And chemistry, I don't have to explain too much, but at the very, very tip top of chemistry is that physical intimacy that we need to wait with. If you turn that pyramid upside down, you try to balance it on the point, it's ultimately going to fall over. So we talk about that, and we flesh through that pyramid all the time.
Yep.
And it's a valuable little tool. I didn't realize when I was drawing it on a napkin that it was going to become so popular.
Oh, yes.
But we do go through that at Genesis. So as Fred said, we do help people understand going forward what a relationship might look like. And I tell you, blended families and blended second marriages they've got their issues just inherent in the way they are set up. It takes a lot of patience and understanding to get to a blended family.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges that we have in second and third marriages.
Correct.
very powerful tool. Very powerful tool. The other thing that I got out of Genesis was all of the recommendations for books about relationships.
Right.
You know, and Stephanie and I used a lot of these recommendations. You know, we went through the triangle together and talked about that, and we went through 5 love languages together before we ever got married.
His needs, her needs.
His needs, her needs, did you go?
You know, and I really recommend that to anybody that's contemplating marriage.
Yeah.
It's an
And
eye opener.
They've tested their love, on a 4-month trip to Alaska in a 20,
Yes, we did.
in an 18-foot, was it 18-foot trailer, 17-foot trailer?
More like 23.
Oh, okay, 23-foot trailer.
It's still small.
It's small. It was small. It was snug. It was fabulous.
Yeah. We'd been married almost a year. And I guess the thought that kept going through my mind is this could make or break us. You know?
We're still together.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it was an incredible journey, you know, because I did think that too. It was, I wasn't sure what we were going to get into, and yeah, I would do it all over again.
Wow.
You didn't want to come home, I heard.
I did not want to come home. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, we're gonna post some videos for that so that you'll be able to follow us on our trip. The final part of this introduction that we haven't got to yet was the marriage.
Yes.
Yes, that was
Yes.
awesome.
That
We-
was.
That was an interesting event. There were some roadblocks in that whole thing.
multiple. Yes.
We dated for what, 3 years?
Oh, forever. No, I'm teasing. Yes, 3 years.
And we're engaged for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we got married here on the shores of the marina.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to have Rob and Jeannie there.
Yes, we did.
And we were so honored to be there.
Yes, we were thrilled about that. It was quite the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had to steal the show.
They did. They did.
You had your back problems,
I did. Yes, I was.
so you were a little bit drugged up.
I was. I
At the
sometimes
vows?
say I'm not sure what I said. But yes, the whole
Temporary insanity, right?
we that day was amazing, you
It
know,
was.
and
It
Jeannie and Rob there, and that's true. Jeannie did steal the show, didn't she?
I
did.
did. Oh my gosh. And I was trying to be so helpful. I know. All right. So when it was all over with, there's some flowers. We were going to dinner. They were going to give us all a dinner. We're going to go to dinner. Now this place that I parked my car, you know, here's the marina. Here's the way you park your car up this hill. Okay. So I took the table. I only had this nice table there. Beautiful flowers that I'm sure you bought.
Well,
And
let me back up to say
Oh.
that there was a pair of shoes that you needed to buy.
I was waiting
I
for
didn't-
that.
Because you weren't going to wear flat shoes, you had to wear heels, so you got a
Yes.
pair of heels
It
to
goes
wear.
back to
So
the
go
shoes.
ahead with the
Yeah,
heel.
yeah. I wanted to I bought them from Walmart just so that I could make the pictures look good. They're right. They're all right. And I knew what she was wearing, and you know. Okay, so I put these shoes on, and they slide in, and I have an ankle problem here. So anyway, I didn't think about it, but we got pictures before this. All right, so I took the flowers. I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna go to the restaurant. So I picked up this vase, and it was huge, and it was heavy, but it had these gorgeous flowers and roses and baby's breath, and it was beautiful. So anyway, I said, I'll take it and I'll put it in the back of my car because I had a little box thing in my car. So I'm walking up to my car, and all of a sudden I can feel on my ankle problem ankle that I was kind of slipping this way, you know, kind of out of the shoe. So I'm trying to get it back in, and what happened? Well, I wasn't going to let go of the flowers, for God's sakes, no.
It was so
So I
graceful.
fell down like this.
Very
And
gracefully.
the vase was still in my hand. My shoes went crazy, and I tipped my head on the road, which was, I don't know, it's all bumpily. And I said, "Oh, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay." So I'm opening the back of my trunk, you know, and they're putting them in, and all of a sudden I see a hand come around from me. It was hers, and it was all full of blood. She said, "No, you're not okay." So we had to go to the emergency room, and we got home at 2 a.m. But they all ate, and guess what they did? They brought the food packed in something to us in the emergency room. We hadn't been seen yet, but they brought it to us in their wedding outfits. How about that? I mean, they were
Well-
awesome. But it wasn't anything. I got okay. I did, honestly.
Yes, and you were fine. The vase did not break.
It did not.
A rose was not broken either. I mean, you protected everything but the back of your head.
And it really felt like, when I put my hand back here, it felt like, you know, a boiled egg, you know, like an egg.
No, it
It
was
was
bad.
exactly the size of an egg, I
It
swear.
was a bit Alarming.
So I stole the show, yeah.
Yes, you did. You did.
But there was no brain damage. At least that's what they said.
Thanks, honey.
None whatsoever. But we are thankful. So thankful, one, that
Yes.
you didn't injure yourself,
Yes,
but
yes.
for the path that you helped lead us to.
Yeah.
Well, somebody did it for us,
Amen.
They did.
so we just pass it along.
And we certainly had God's guidance through it all.
But your wedding and the pastor was, everything that was said was so beautiful. And it was such a beautiful wedding. Just so intimate.
It was.
it was perfect.
It was.
From what I remember. No, it was perfect. I
Yes,
agree.
it was. It
I
was perfect.
agree. And wow, where is it gone from here?
Been almost 2 years now.
I know. I know.
Almost.
Almost.
How do you feel about your third marriage?
Great. Can't be any better.
That's true. Good answer.
You didn't know anybody could love you like that, did you?
I didn't. I really didn't.
I knew that.
Yeah.
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 That is true. Ditto.
And I'm glad you guys got married because all you could do is talk about him. So I'm glad you finally got married.
Well, you learned so much about us.
Well, Jeannie and I have just had our 23rd wedding anniversary this past month,
Yep.
September, and we got 7 grandchildren between us. So we've been married for 23 years, and it's going great.
That's right.
Yeah, and I want to tell you that when we got married, it was the week of 9/11.
Oh, that's
Yeah, that's
rough
what.
time.
That's when. Yeah, that was really crazy because our honeymoon was a little. Well, it was fun, but we were worried if we're going to
Well,
get it.
what was interesting is the people that said they couldn't come because they were going to be out of town didn't travel,
right.
and then the people that said they were going to travel in town to see to be a part of the wedding, they didn't show up either. So we had a complete flip flop
That's
of people. So when we had our reception, we were like, "You came? How about that?"
Here, you take this place card because they're not going to be here.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
You do. You
So
adapt.
there's always an adventure.
That's right.
Always an
Right.
adventure.
That's right. I agree.
We actually spread our marriage out over a period of time. We had a reception.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
That
After
was
the-
Weeks,
so
if not
fun.
months after the wedding.
And
after the
we made that
surgery.
one.
I made that one. Yeah, I was. It was all right. I could do it.
Yeah. I recovered after the back surgery.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was nice. That was really a nice celebration too.
Yeah.
With no injuries, I believe.
Yes. No injuries.
Check.
Check.
We about ready to wrap up?
I think we are.
I think just a little housekeeping here. We'll have some links for the slippery slope and the relationship triangle. And I haven't sprung this on Rob and Jeannie yet, whether they want to be able to be contacted from this or not.
Well, I'd like to have you back and talk about those things again.
Yeah, we
in
could
depth,
do a video on both of those.
if you're willing.
Well, free lunch. We'll be here.
That sounds good.
Leave it to my
That
husband.
works.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
That works.
So once again, this is Fred,
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Jeannie.
I'm Rob.
and we are the Roaming Souls.